Hello. Welcome to the Narrative Reading Bible podcast. Today, we continue our reading of the book of Numbers with pages 225 to 235 of the Narrative Reading Bible, Book 1, Past the Promise, Genesis to Deuteronomy. The reading is from the Berean Standard Bible translation. Enjoy today's reading.
Soon the people began to complain about their hardship in the hearing of the Lord, and when he heard them, his anger was kindled, and fire from the Lord blazed among them, and consumed the outskirts of the camp. And the people cried out to Moses, and he prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. So that place was called Taberah, because the fire of the Lord had burned among them. Meanwhile, the rabble among them had a strong craving for other food. And again, the Israelites wept and said, "Who will feed us meat? We remember the fish we ate freely in Egypt, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our appetite is gone. There is nothing to see but this manna." Now the manna resembled coriander seed, and its appearance was like that of gum resin. The people walked around and gathered it, ground it on a hand mill or crushed it in a mortar, then boiled it in a cooking pot, or shaped it into cakes. It tasted like pastry, baked with fine oil. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall with it. Then Moses heard the people of family after family weeping at the entrances to their tents, and the anger of the Lord was kindled greatly, and Moses was also displeased. So Moses asked the Lord, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? Why have I not found favor in your sight, that you have laid upon me the burden of all these people? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? So that you should tell me, 'Carry them in your bosom, as a nurse carries an infant, to the land that you swore to give their fathers.' Where can I get meat for all these people? For they keep crying out to me, 'Give us meat to eat.' I cannot carry all these people by myself. It is too burdensome for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please kill me right now, if I have found favor in your eyes, and let me not see my own wretchedness." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Bring me 70 of the elders of Israel known to you as leaders and officers of the people. Bring them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. And I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take some of the spirit that is on you, and put that spirit on them. They will help you bear the burden of the people, so that you do not have to bear it by yourself. And say to the people, 'Consecrate yourselves for tomorrow, and you will eat meat, because you have cried out in the hearing of the Lord, saying, Who will feed us meat? For we were better off in Egypt.' Therefore, the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat. You will eat it not for 1 or 2 days, nor for 5 or 10 or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and makes you nauseous, because you have rejected the Lord, who is among you, and have cried out before him, saying, 'Why did we ever leave Egypt?' But Moses replied, 'Here I am among 600,000 men on foot. Yet you say, I will give them meat, and they will eat for a month. If all our flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would they have enough? Or if all the fish in the sea were caught for them, would they have enough?' The Lord answered Moses, 'Is the Lord's arm too short? Now you will see whether or not my word will come to pass.' So Moses went out and relayed to the people the words of the Lord, and he gathered 70 of the elders of the people and had them stand around the tent. Then the Lord came down in the cloud and spoke to him, and he took some of the spirit that was on Moses and placed that spirit on the 70 elders. As the spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but they never did so again. 2 men, however, had remained in the camp, one named Eldad and the other Medad, and the spirit rested on them. They were among those listed, but they had not gone out to the tent, and they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and reported to Moses, 'Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp.' Joshua son of Nun, the attendant to Moses since youth, spoke up and said, 'Moses, my lord, stop them.' But Moses replied, 'Are you jealous on my account? I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would place his spirit on them.' Then Moses returned to the camp, along with the elders of Israel. Now a wind sent by the Lord came up, drove in quail from the sea, and brought them near the camp, about 2 cubits above the surface of the ground, for a day's journey in every direction around the camp. All that day and night, and all the next day, the people stayed up gathering the quail. No one gathered less than 10 homers, and they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, before it was chewed, the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and the Lord struck them with a severe plague. So they called that place Kibroth Hattava, because there they buried the people who had craved other food. From Kibroth Hattava, the people moved on to Hazeroth, where they remained for some time. Then Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married, for he had taken a Cushite wife. "Does the Lord speak only through Moses?" they said. "Does he not also speak through us?" And the Lord heard this. Now Moses was a very humble man, more so than any man on the face of the earth. And suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "You three, come out to the tent of meeting." So the three went out, and the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, stood at the entrance to the tent, and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When both of them had stepped forward, he said, "Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will reveal myself to him in a vision. I will speak to him in a dream. But this is not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you unafraid to speak against my servant Moses?" So the anger of the Lord burned against them, and he departed. As the cloud lifted from above the tent, suddenly Miriam became leprous, white as snow. Aaron turned toward her, saw that she was leprous, and said to Moses, "My Lord, please do not hold against us this sin we have so foolishly committed. Please do not let her be like a stillborn infant whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb." So Moses cried out to the Lord, "O God, please heal her." But the Lord answered Moses, "If her father had but spit in her face, would she not have been in disgrace for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days. After that, she may be brought back in." So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on until she was brought in again. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. And the Lord said to Moses, "Send out for yourself men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each of their fathers' tribes, send one man who is a leader among them." So at the consent of the Lord, Moses sent them out from the wilderness of Paran. All the men were leaders of the Israelites, and these were their names. From the tribe of Reuben, Shammua son of Zachar. From the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat son of Hori. From the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Jephunneh. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal son of Joseph. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin, Palti son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel son of Sodi. From the tribe of Manasseh, a tribe of Joseph, Gadi son of Susi. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel son of Gamali. From the tribe of Asher, Sethur son of Michael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi son of Vophsi. And from the tribe of Gad, Guel son of Machi. These were the names of the men Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses gave to Hoshea, son of Nun, the name Joshua. When Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, he told them, "Go up through the Negev and into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether its people are strong or weak, few or many. Is the land where they live good or bad? Are the cities where they dwell open camps or fortifications? Is the soil fertile or unproductive? Are there trees in it or not? Be courageous, and bring back some of the fruit of the land." It was the season for the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin, as far as Rehob, toward Lebo-Hamath. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak, dwelled. It had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, which they carried on a pole between 2 men. They also took some pomegranates and figs. Because of the cluster of grapes, the Israelites cut there. That place was called the Valley of Eshcol. After 40 days, the men returned from spying out the land, and they went back to Moses, Aaron, and the whole congregation of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back a report for the whole congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they gave this account to Moses. We went into the land to which you sent us, and indeed it is flowing with milk and honey. Here is some of its fruit. Nevertheless, the people living in the land are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We even saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the land of the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "We must go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly conquer it." But the men who had gone up with him replied, "We cannot go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are." So they gave the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had spied out. "The land we explored devours its inhabitants, and all the people we saw there are great in stature. We even saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak, that come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own sight, and we must have seemed the same to them." Then the whole congregation lifted up their voices and cried out, and that night the people wept. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, "If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell face down before the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes and said to the whole congregation of Israel, "The land we passed through and explored is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and he will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, for they will be like bread for us. Their protection has been removed, and the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them." But the whole congregation threatened to stone Joshua and Caleb. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tent of meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "How long will this people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me, despite all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them with a plague and destroy them, and I will make you into a nation greater and mightier than they are." But Moses said to the Lord, "The Egyptians will hear of it, for by your strength you brought this people from among them, and they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are in the midst of this people, that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stands over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you kill this people as one man, the nations who have heard of your fame will say, 'Because the Lord was unable to bring this people into the land he swore to give them, he has slaughtered them in the wilderness.' So now I pray, may the power of my Lord be magnified, just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger and abounding in loving devotion, forgiving iniquity and transgression. Yet he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished. He will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon their children, to the third and fourth generation. Pardon, I pray, the iniquity of this people, in keeping with the greatness of your loving devotion, just as you have forgiven them ever since they left Egypt." "I have pardoned them, as you requested," the Lord replied. "Yet as surely as I live, and as surely as the whole earth is filled with the glory of the Lord, not one of the men who have seen my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness, yet have tested me and disobeyed me these 10 times, not one will ever see the land that I swore to give their fathers. None of those who have treated me with contempt will see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and has followed me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he has entered, and his descendants will inherit it. Now since the Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn back tomorrow and head for the wilderness, along the route to the Red Sea." Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "How long will this wicked congregation grumble against me? I have heard the complaints that the Israelites are making against me. So tell them, 'As surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you exactly as I heard you say. Your bodies will fall in this wilderness, all who were numbered in the census, everyone 20 years of age or older, because you have grumbled against me. Surely none of you will enter the land in which I swore to settle you, except Caleb son of Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. But I will bring your children, whom you said would become plunder, into the land you have rejected, and they will enjoy it. As for you, however, your bodies will fall in this wilderness. Your children will be shepherds in the wilderness for 40 years, and they will suffer for your unfaithfulness until the last of your bodies lies in the wilderness. In keeping with the 40 days you spied out the land, you shall bear your guilt 40 years, a year for each day, and you will experience my alienation. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will surely do these things to this entire wicked congregation, which has conspired against me. They will meet their end in the wilderness, and there they will die. So the men Moses had sent to spy out the land, who had returned and made the whole congregation grumble against him by bringing out a bad report about the land. Those men who had brought out the bad report about the land were struck down by a plague before the Lord. Of those men who had gone to spy out the land, only Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh remained alive. And when Moses relayed these words to all the Israelites, the people mourned bitterly. Early the next morning, they got up and went up toward the ridge of the hill country. We have indeed sinned, they said, but we will go to the place the Lord has promised. But Moses said, Why are you transgressing the commandment of the Lord? This will not succeed. Do not go up, lest you be struck down by your enemies, because the Lord is not among you. For there the Amalekites and Canaanites will face you, and you will fall by the sword. Because you have turned away from the Lord, he will not be with you. But they dared to go up to the ridge of the hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the covenant of the Lord moved from the camp. Then the Amalekites and Canaanites who lived in that part of the hill country came down, attacked them, and routed them all the way to Hormah. Then the Lord said to Moses, Speak to the Israelites and tell them, After you enter the land that I am giving you as a home, and you present an offering made by fire to the Lord from the herd or flock, to produce a pleasing aroma to the Lord, either a burnt offering or a sacrifice, for a special vow or free will offering or appointed feast. Then the one presenting his offering to the Lord shall also present a grain offering of 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/4 hin of olive oil. With the burnt offering or sacrifice of each lamb, you are to prepare 1/4 hin of wine as a drink offering. With a ram, you are to prepare a grain offering of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/3 of a hin of olive oil and 1/3 of a hin of wine as a drink offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. When you prepare a young bull as a burnt offering or sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a peace offering to the Lord, present with the bull a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour, mixed with 1/2 hin of olive oil. Also present 1/2 hin of wine as a drink offering. It is an offering made by fire, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. This is to be done for each bull, ram, lamb, or goat. This is how you must prepare each one, no matter how many. Everyone who is native born shall prepare these things in this way when he presents an offering made by fire as a pleasing aroma to the Lord. And for the generations to come, if a foreigner residing with you or someone else among you wants to prepare an offering made by fire as a pleasing aroma to the Lord, he is to do exactly as you do. The assembly is to have the same statute both for you and for the foreign resident. It is a permanent statute for the generations to come. You and the foreigner shall be the same before the Lord. The same law and the same ordinance will apply both to you and to the foreigner residing with you. Then the Lord said to Moses, Speak to the Israelites and tell them, When you enter the land to which I am bringing you, and you eat the food of the land, you shall lift up an offering to the Lord. From the first of your dough, you are to lift up a cake as a contribution. Offer it just like an offering from the threshing floor. Throughout your generations, you are to give the Lord an offering from the first of your dough. Now if you stray unintentionally and do not obey all these commandments that the Lord has spoken to Moses, all that the Lord has commanded you through Moses, from the day the Lord gave them, and continuing through the generations to come, and if it was done unintentionally without the knowledge of the congregation, then the whole congregation is to prepare one young bull as a burnt offering, a pleasing aroma to the Lord, with its grain offering and drink offering according to the regulation, and one male goat as a sin offering. The priest is to make atonement for the whole congregation of Israel, so that they may be forgiven. For the sin was unintentional, and they have brought to the Lord an offering made by fire, and a sin offering, presented before the Lord, for their unintentional sin. Then the whole congregation of Israel and the foreigners residing among them will be forgiven, since it happened to all the people unintentionally. Also, if one person sins unintentionally, he is to present a year-old female goat as a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement before the Lord on behalf of the person who erred by sinning unintentionally. And when atonement has been made for him, he will be forgiven. You shall have the same law for the one who acts in error, whether he is a native-born Israelite or a foreigner residing among you. But the person who sins defiantly, whether a native or foreigner, blasphemes the Lord. That person shall be cut off from among his people. He shall certainly be cut off, because he has despised the word of the Lord and broken his commandment. His guilt remains on him. While the Israelites were in the wilderness, a man was found gathering wood on the Sabbath day. Those who found the man gathering wood brought him to Moses, Aaron, and the whole congregation. And because it had not been declared what should be done to him, they placed him in custody. And the Lord said to Moses, "The man must surely be put to death. The whole congregation is to stone him outside the camp." So the whole congregation took the man outside the camp and stoned him to death, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Later the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and tell them that throughout the generations to come they are to make for themselves tassels for the corners of their garments, with a blue cord on each tassel. These will serve as tassels for you to look at, so that you may remember all the commandments of the Lord, that you may obey them and not prostitute yourselves by following your own heart and your own eyes. Then you will remember and obey all my commandments, and you will be holy to your God. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord your God." Now Korah son of Izhar, the son of Kohath son of Levi, along with some Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and on son of Peleth, conducted a rebellion against Moses, along with 250 men of Israel, renowned as leaders of the congregation and representatives in the assembly. They came together against Moses and Aaron and told them, "You have taken too much upon yourselves, for everyone in the entire congregation is holy, and the Lord is in their midst. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?" When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all his followers, "Tomorrow morning the Lord will reveal who belongs to him and who is holy, and he will bring that person near to himself. The one he chooses, he will bring near to himself. You, Korah, and all your followers are to do as follows. Take censers, and tomorrow you are to place fire and incense in them in the presence of the Lord. Then the man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. It is you, sons of Levi, who have taken too much upon yourselves." Moses also said to Korah, "Now listen, you sons of Levi. Is it not enough for you that the God of Israel has separated you from the congregation of Israel and brought you near to himself to perform the work at the Lord's tabernacle, and to stand before the congregation to minister to them? He has brought you near, you and all your fellow Levites, but you are seeking the priesthood as well. Therefore, it is you and all your followers who have conspired against the Lord. As for Aaron, who is he that you should grumble against him?" Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab. But they said, "We will not come. Is it not enough that you have brought us up out of a land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? Must you also appoint yourself as ruler over us? Moreover, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, or given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Will you gouge out the eyes of these men? No, we will not come." Then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, "Do not regard their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, or mistreated a single one of them." And Moses said to Korah, "You and all your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow, you and they and Aaron. Each man is to take his censer, place incense in it, and present it before the Lord, 250 censers. You and Aaron are to present your censers as well." So each man took his censer, put fire and incense in it, and stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance to the tent of meeting. When Korah had gathered his whole assembly against them at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole congregation. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Separate yourselves from this congregation so that I may consume them in an instant." But Moses and Aaron fell face down and said, "O God, the God of the spirits of all flesh, when one man sins, will you be angry with the whole congregation? Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the congregation to move away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram." So Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he warned the congregation, "Move away now from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything that belongs to them, or you will be swept away because of all their sins." So they moved away from the dwellings of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Meanwhile, Dathan and Abiram had come out and stood at the entrances to their tents with their wives and children and infants. Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, for it was not my own doing. If these men die a natural death, or if they suffer the fate of all men, then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something unprecedented, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them and all that belongs to them so that they go down alive into Sheol, then you will know that these men have treated the Lord with contempt." As soon as Moses had finished saying all this, the ground beneath them split open, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, all Korah's men, and all their possessions. They went down alive into Sheol with all they owned. The earth closed over them, and they vanished from the assembly. At their cries, all the people of Israel who were around them fled, saying, "The earth may swallow us too." And fire came forth from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Eleazar son of Aaron the priest to remove the censers from the flames and to scatter the coals far away, because the censers are holy. As for the censers of those who sinned at the cost of their own lives, hammer them into sheets to overlay the altar, for these were presented before the Lord, and so have become holy. They will serve as a sign to the Israelites." So Eleazar the priest took the bronze censers brought by those who had been burned up, and he had them hammered out to overlay the altar, just as the Lord commanded him through Moses. This was to be a reminder to the Israelites that no outsider who is not a descendant of Aaron should approach to offer incense before the Lord, lest he become like Korah and his followers. The next day the whole congregation of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron, saying, "You have killed the Lord's people." But when the congregation gathered against them, Moses and Aaron turned toward the tent of meeting, and suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, "Get away from this congregation, so that I may consume them in an instant." And Moses and Aaron fell face down. Moses said to Aaron, "Take your censer, place fire from the altar in it, and add incense. Go quickly to the congregation and make atonement for them, because wrath has come out from the Lord. The plague has begun." So Aaron took the censer as Moses had ordered and ran into the midst of the assembly. And seeing that the plague had begun among the people, he offered the incense and made atonement for the people. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague was halted. But those who died from the plague numbered 14,700, in addition to those who had died on account of Korah. Then Aaron returned to Moses at the entrance to the tent of meeting, since the plague had been halted. And the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites, and take from them 12 staffs, one from the leader of each tribe. Write each man's name on his staff, and write Aaron's name on the staff of Levi, because there must be one staff for the head of each tribe. Place the staffs in the tent of meeting in front of the testimony, where I meet with you. The staff belonging to the man I choose will sprout, and I will rid myself of the constant grumbling of the Israelites against you." So Moses spoke to the Israelites, and each of their leaders gave him a staff, one for each of the leaders of their tribes, 12 staffs in all. And Aaron's staff was among them. Then Moses placed the staffs before the Lord in the tent of the testimony. The next day Moses entered the tent of the testimony and saw that Aaron's staff, representing the house of Levi, had sprouted, put forth buds, blossomed, and produced almonds. Then Moses brought out all the staffs from the Lord's presence to all the Israelites. They saw them, and each man took his own staff. The Lord said to Moses, "Put Aaron's staff back in front of the testimony, to be kept as a sign for the rebellious, so that you may put an end to their grumbling against me, lest they die." So Moses did as the Lord had commanded him. Then the Israelites declared to Moses, "Look, we are perishing, we are lost, we are all lost. Anyone who comes near the tabernacle of the Lord will die. Are we all going to perish?"
Thank you for joining us as we read through pages 225 to 235. Tomorrow, we will continue our reading of the book of Numbers with pages 235 to 244. We'll see you then. Take care. God bless.